All right, let's get started on the video review. This first video is going to be objective 1 and part of objective 2, and then the second video will finish the second objective and go into the graphing objective. So, question 1A and 1B, identify the domain and the range of the relation, and then they want to know, is the relation a function? And explain your answer using a complete sentence. If you guys remember from your notes, the domain is just another name for all of the x coordinates, and the range is another name for all of the y coordinates. So when I go for 1A, the domain, I'm simply going to just list the x coordinates, and then when I go for the range, I'm going to list the y coordinates. And then that's it. As far as the second part, is the relation a function? The answer is no. And where you look is in the domain. And in the domain, all of the x coordinates have to be different in order for it to be a function. So is 1A a function? The answer is no. Um, this is not a function because the x coordinates repeat. And that's putting my answer in a complete sentence. All right, let's go to 1B. So same thing. For the domain, I'm simply going to list my x coordinates. And if you notice, they are all different. And then for my range, I'm going to list all my y coordinates. So is this a function? Yes, this is a function because all the x coordinates are different. All right, let's go on to 2A and 2B. On 2A, I want to draw a relation, and on 2B, I want to draw a function. So drawing a relation just means that if I drew a shape and then I drew a vertical line through it, the VLT, the vertical line test, that vertical line would touch my shape twice. Okay, so I'm just going to simply draw a sideways U. And the reason why this is going to be a function is because if I start drawing or I'm sorry, the reason why this is going to stay a relation is because if I start drawing vertical lines through it, it touches my shape twice. And if I go back to what this means for 1A, it just means that an x coordinate is repeating. So if I look at the top point, this is negative 1, 5, and then the bottom one, that's negative 1, negative 3. The x's are repeating, and when x's repeat, it does not get to be a function. It stays a relation. So what's an example of a function? I can just draw a line. Because as soon as I start drawing vertical lines through here, it only touches it once, which means that x coordinate is only showing up one time. So what made 2b a function? 2b is a function because it passed the vertical line test. And I'm going to abbreviate vertical line test with VLT. All right, let's go to number 3. So on 3 and 4, you are evaluating the function. So what does this mean? I'm going to actually circle what you're going to evaluate. This is the function. And then what I'm underlining, the negative 4, is what I want you to put into the function. So this is just simply me taking negative 3/4 times negative 4 and then adding 2. So if I go through the math here, I'm actually just going to divide my negative 4 and 4, which is negative 1. I'm going to take that times the negative 3, so kind of going with my work over here. That gives me 3, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So the stuff to the right just wants me to write the answer in a more formal way. My function, if I made x worth negative 4, would be 5. Okay? So I'm going to do the same thing on number 4. Here's my function, and this is saying put 3 in for the x. So wherever I see x, I'm going to put a 3 in. So going through the work, I follow the order of operations. 3 squared is 9. And then I multiply before I add, so I'm going to take 2 times 9 and get 18. At that point, I'm going to have 18 plus 3, which gives me 21. So my function, if I make x worth 3, is 21. Okay? All right, on 5 and 6, I'm just simplifying the function. So I'm just cleaning this up. And if you guys remember, we did that activity with, some of you did the warm up on a pink paper and some of you did it on a blue paper. What I would do is I would go through, turn all your subtraction into addition. So I'm going to add the opposite and add the opposite. And now that I am ready to simplify, the first step means I distribute the 2 into both parts of the parentheses. That gives me 2x squared plus 10. And then I'm going to distribute the negative 3 in. And that gives me negative 21 plus a positive 3x squared, because negative 3 and negative x squared, those negatives multiply into a positive. And now I'm going to combine my like terms. So when I look at how many x squareds I have 5 of them. And then I'm going to cross them out. I don't need them anymore. And then when I look at how many just numbers I have, those are called constants. I have negative 11. I'm going to do the same thing for number 6. So first, I'm just going to add the opposite on that minus 8. And now I'm going to distribute my 5. And just kind of working left to right, I still have 7x plus 4x cubed. But now when I distribute my 5 in, I get 5x cubed plus negative 40. And now I'm going to combine my like terms. So how many x cubes do I have? I have 9 of them. I'm going to cross those off. I don't need them anymore. I don't have any other x's, so I'm just going to bring the 7x along. Cross that out. And then I have negative 40. And you could write this in any order. You can write minus 40, doesn't matter. And that is our first objective, which is um, recognizing, simplifying, and evaluating linear equations and functions. So let's go to the second objective. All right, so in this objective, we are finding the slope and writing linear equations, which remember, you guys, that's just y equals mx plus b. So first one, find the slope. I'm just going to go about this with the fact that it's rise over run. So I'm going to count how many spaces I rise and how many spaces I run over. So when I look at how many spaces I rise 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces up. And then I run over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my rise over my run is 4 over 9. But the downfall of this counting is you might lose the fact that this is a negative slope. Negative slopes fall, so I'd be sure to put a negative with that. And it doesn't matter if it's with the 4 or the 9. Just put a negative with one of those numbers. Okay? All right, number 8. Find the slope of the line passing through the points. So I need to subtract my y's over my x's to find the slope. So I'm going to start, and when I look at which way I want to subtract my y's, I would prefer to do y minus negative 2. So I'm going to write that out, which means when I subtract my x's, I have to go the same direction. So it's going to be negative 5 minus negative 4. Again, I really suggest you add the opposite, so it's going to become plus positive 2 and plus positive 4. And then my numerator is 3. When I add negative 5 and 4, I get negative 1. So my slope is just negative 3. And you could write the fraction. And if you subtract it the other way, then the negative is going to be with the 3 instead. So it doesn't matter, as long as you have negative 3 in the end. Number 9, decide whether line 1 or line 2 are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Well, remember, parallel lines have the same slope, and perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite, so one's positive and one's negative, and then reciprocal, so the fractions are going to flip. So starting with line 1, I'm just going to put m1. I'm going to take negative 7 minus negative 2, and then I'm going to subtract my x's the same way. So I will take 2 minus negative 1. Again, I'm going to add the opposite. When I go for the numerator, negative 7 plus 2 is now negative 5, and my numerator, 2 plus 1 is 3. And now I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to do this with line 2, so I'm going to call that m2. So on m2, I'm actually going to subtract the other direction now, 2 minus negative 3, and I'm going to subtract my x's the same way. So negative 9 minus negative 6. I'm going to add the opposite on both. My numerator becomes 5, and the denominator is negative 3. And when I look, even though this negative sign's in a different spot, it's still negative 5/3. So since the slopes are the same, my lines are parallel. So are the lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Here's my complete sentence. The two lines are parallel. because they both have a slope of negative 5/3. All right, so that's number 10, or I'm sorry, number 9. Let's go to the top and talk about number 10. So this is a word problem. Don't be afraid. It's just a little bit of reading. So on Friday, you left for a weekend camping trip with 110 miles on the odometer and 14.5 gallons of gas in the tank of your car. When you returned on Sunday, the odometer read 299 miles and 7.5 gallons of gas. So how many gallons or how many miles per gallon did you average on your trip? The slope is just average. So I need an x and y coordinate from my 110 and 14.5 gallons, and then from the other data. When you're trying to figure out what's x and what's y, you guys, they even tell you here it's miles per gallon, which means I've got the y's on the top and the x's on the bottom. So when I go with the 110 and the 14.5, I'm going to write it like this as the x and y. And then I have 299 with 7.5. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract. Let me move this down a little bit. I'm going to subtract my y's. So 14.5 minus 7.5. And I'm going to subtract my x's the same way. So when I'm done with this, what I end up with is, all right, I just realized I made a mistake, so I'm actually going to start over on this problem. So ignore everything that I've just said. Sorry about that, you guys. The miles per gallon part. Let's go back to that. So when I'm filling in the miles per gallon, the miles are my y and the gallons are my x, but I didn't write them correctly the first time. So my first information for the 110 and the 14.5, the 14.5 is x and the 110 is y. And then in the other one, the 7.5 is the x and the 299 is the y. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract my y's. So 299 minus 110 is just a little bit easier. And then I'm going to subtract my x's, following the same way. So when I'm done subtracting my y's, I get 189. And when I'm done subtracting my x's, I get 7, or actually negative 7. And when I divide those, I get negative 27. And the reason why it's negative is because it's going down. So if you also have positive 27, that's okay because you can explain it in your answers. So how many miles per gallon did you average on your trip? I averaged 27 miles per gallon on my trip. And that's a complete sentence. So sorry about that mistake. All right, let's go to number 11. So number 11 is another word problem. In 2000, the pollution in a local lake was at 32%, and in the current year, which is this year, 2012, the pollution is now at 65%. If this change happened at a steady or average rate, how much did the, and that's a typo, how much did the pollution increase each year? Again, how do I figure out what's x and what's y? Time is always x. So 2000 is going to be my x coordinate, and my pollution rate is at 32%. And then the current year, so 2012, it went up to 65%. So I'm going to subtract my y's, so 65 minus 32. I'm just going to leave out the percent signs here. And then how much time has changed from 2012? Since 2000, that's 12 years. And when I subtract my years, the 65 take away 32, I get 33. And now that's how much it's changed over the 12 years. What I want to know is how much it's changed per year. So I'm just going to divide those two. And when I'm done dividing, I get 2.75, which is a percent. So how much did it increase each year? The pollution increased multiply rate of 2.75% per year. Okay, that's number 11. Let's go check out number 12. Number 12, write the equation of the line. So remember, that means you need to come up with y equals mx plus b. Specifically, you need the m and the b of the line that passes through the point 2, -1 and has a slope of -2. So you already have half your answer. It's y equals -2x. And again, as I pointed out in class, the common mistake is we want to make the -1 in our point be the b, because -1 is a y coordinate and b is the y-intercept, but they're not the same. So what I need to do is take that y and x coordinate, the 2 and the -1, and put it into y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to figure out what that b is. So in for y goes -1, not the 2, and then -2 times my x coordinate, which is 2, and I'm going to figure out what b is. So from here it's two steps. I'm going to multiply first, and now to get b by itself, either add the number or subtract the number. But to get -4 by itself, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So when I am done adding, I end up getting that b is worth 5. And now I can go to my answer over here, and I can write down that b is going to be worth 5. Okay? So 13 is going to be the exact same way. What I need to do is come up with my equation, and they already told me the slope, so there's half my answer, y equals -4x. And I'm going to figure out what that b is by taking the x and y they gave me and put it into this equation right here. So in for y goes 3, and then I have -4 times x, which is 2. And again, two steps. First I multiply, and then I either add or subtract to get that number to the other side, so it's just b, and to move it I'm going to add 8, which means when I'm done I have figured out that b is worth 11. So I can go over here, erase the b, and just turn it into 11. Okay? All right. I think at this point I'm going to stop, and I'm going to go to a different video for the rest of it. All right?